Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of our midweek devotions. This week, we're talking about community with our neighbor. And the story that we're going to read this morning is the story about Jesus healing the paraplegic that is lowered through the ceiling. So this comes from Mark chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. When he returned to Capernaum after some days, it was reported that he was at home. So many gathered around that there was no longer room for them, not even in the front door, and he was speaking the word to them. Then some people came, bringing to him a paralyzed man, carried by 4 of them. And when they could not bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, they removed the roof above him, and after having dug through it, they let down the mat on which the paralytic lay. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now some of the scribes were sitting there questioning in their hearts, "Why does this fellow speak in this way? It is blasphemy. Who can forgive sins but for God alone?" At once Jesus perceived in his spirit that they were discussing these questions among themselves, and he said to them, "Why do you raise such questions in your hearts? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Stand up and take your mat and walk'? But so that you may know the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic, "I say to you, stand up, take your mat, and go home." And he stood up and immediately took the mat and went out before all of them, so that they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." That story is important when we talk about community with our neighbors, because the paralytic man could not get to Jesus on his own. He was stuck on his mat, and even though he wanted to see Jesus, he couldn't walk into the house and shove through the crowd to see Jesus. And so what ended up happening was 4 people from the community saw his need and even dug down through the roof of the house that Jesus was in so that the man could be lowered into the room in front of Jesus. And Jesus heals him. And it's because of the faith of these men in their community, the faith of these men in their friend who maybe was a little bit of an outcast in the community as a paralytic, to make sure that he was healed. To the point where Jesus says, "Go up, get up, go home, and be in community with your neighbors." Sometimes being in community is difficult. It is a wonderful and amazing thing that we have with our neighbors, but we all know that people are people, and they can be more complex than just simply living among each other. But it's really important when we think about during Lent that we are together as a community and we work through stuff as neighbors because we're a whole lot stronger together. And maybe that's something that you've heard way too much in the past year. But right here is a biblical story that is showing us that when 4 people or more can get together and they can take care of their neighbors, they can be healed, they can be healthy, and we see the work of Jesus, and we see Jesus working in the lives of people through our neighbors and through one another. Thank you for watching this midweek devotion. When you're praying this week, pray for your neighbors and lift up those who you feel could really use the light of Jesus this week. So I will see you next week for week 4. We're about halfway through Lent, and I hope that you guys have an amazing week.